Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Margaret Battersby Black, and I, along with Ben Crump, represent Yadira Escamilla. Yadira wanted to be here today. She has been through a lot. She's testified at criminal proceedings. She's spoken to the press multiple times, but she's going through some very difficult times and trauma dealing with this experience, and she unfortunately can't make it. She did ask me to read a statement. It is DCFS's job to protect us. By the time foster children like me are in the system, we have already been through so much trauma and abuse. We need help and protection. But instead of helping us, DCFS put us in an even worse and dangerous situation at Aunt Martha's. What hurts the most is that DCFS knew what was going on and they didn't stop it or take steps to protect us. I hope that this prompts Governor Pritzker to make big changes at DCFS. I am not the only victim. There are many foster children who suffered abuse and neglect at Aunt Martha's. It was a house of horrors for us. The difference today between this lawsuit that we have filed against DCFS and the one that we have filed several weeks ago against Aunt Martha's and AA Alert is that we have filed this lawsuit against the state in the Court of Claims because it's the only avenue for Yadira and others like her to get justice. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Crump to say some words.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and to Attorney Brooke Cluse. We're here on behalf of our client, Yadira, to announce that we're filing this multi-million-dollar lawsuit against not only Aunt Martha's, but also against Alert Security Company and the state of Illinois. Because as Margaret articulated, that Aunt Martha's was supposed to give her a safe environment. They failed. Alert Security Company was supposed to protect her. They failed. And the state of Illinois was supposed to make sure that she was secure in the facility that they put her in. They failed in their supervision. And this failure led to a very traumatic experience for this young girl who had already suffered so much trauma. And oftentimes, as Margaret and I have done other matters, we know from talking to our clients that sexual assault trauma is something that even though it may last for minutes, it lives forever within their nervous system, no matter how hard they try to get over it. The body remembers what the mind can't forget in dramatic ways. And so we pray for Yadira, we pray for all the young people who suffered in the house of horrors. And we pray that they find the courage to come forward like Yadira did to try to not only find some sense of peace and healing, but also to make sure we don't ever have this happen again in Chicago or in the state of Illinois. And Margaret and Brooke, we talked about this often. Yadira did everything right. She reported what happened. She testified in court. She helped put her abuser behind bars. Now we are going to make sure the institutions that failed her are held fully accountable. Aunt Martha's and A-Alert were paid by the state to protect vulnerable children in the state's custody. Children who had already been through unimaginable hardship. Instead, they hired a convicted felon. I mean, it's background checks are so easy to do now. But they hired a convicted felon and looked the other way while he groomed and assaulted these teenagers in their care. And Margaret will go into detail, and Attorney Cluse, about how this was preventable because Yadira had reported it. Because another young lady felt she was experiencing the grooming and the inappropriate relations with this convicted felon. But then, because it fell on deaf ears, and not only Aunt Martha's, not only the security company, but the state were asleep at the wheel, then she was sexually assaulted repeatedly. Repeatedly. And I don't know what these children can do when they're telling the adults that I am being sexually assaulted and nothing happens, and they have to continue to endure the abuse. It sets off a lifetime of trauma. And even though it lasted but a few minutes, it's a lifelong pain, hypervigilance, and grief. You talk to any sexual assault victim, they will tell you that they're never the same. Now, imagine a child being sexually abused while their brain is still developing, and the imprint, the lasting imprint on their mental status. That's what we're dealing with, this fragile young girl. And that's why we're going to make sure that she receives justice that she deserves, and until every institution that houses vulnerable children understands that there are consequences when they fail our children. These consequences are real. I don't think anybody would take any amount of money to live through what these children had to live through. And so we're going to send a message to all of the institutions that this is not going to be allowed without having repercussions. Attorney Cluse, Margaret, I don't know if we have anything else before we take questions.
Would you like to say?
Sure.
We'll move that. Okay. I think if you speak loud.
All right.
Yes.
Sure.
Sure. Oh, we could change seats. Okay. Oh, thank you.
All right.
Could you spell your name for the?
Yes. Brooke, Brooke, last name Cluse, attorney at Ben Crump Law. I just want to reiterate that Aunt Martha's obligations to Yadira and the other residents were not aspirational. They were obligations under the law. And while Yadira is not here, we commend her bravery and her courage, and we will meet that courage with the same resolve as we seek to give Yadira the justice that she deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, Margaret and Brooke and I will try to answer your questions in reference to not only the past lawsuit, as I understand it, Margaret, but the lawsuit that was filed today.
What is anything the state doing at this stage to fix the situation that Aunt Martha's?
Well, We know that the state was aware for years what was going on at Aunt Martha's. Aunt Martha's had expressed concerns to the state, and that took too long to fix. They eventually closed down Aunt Martha's, but not before Yadira and others were significantly impacted for the rest of their lives by being sexually assaulted. Our lawsuit hopes to get to the bottom of how that happened. Why didn't they heed those warnings? Why didn't they react? Why didn't they shut it down earlier? Why didn't they investigate? And we're hoping to find out why. And when we can get to the root of that problem, we'll have a fix for the system.
Now, I think that just to then illustrate your point more, maybe talk a little bit about just the sheer overwhelming number of calls that were made to Aunt Martha, police responses, all of these previous incidents that you were able to uncover through your background.
Our research shows that from 2018 until Aunt Martha's was shut down, there were over 3,000 unusual incident reports to DCFS. The police were called to the facility 175 times. In 2023, there was an AA alert security guard, Antonio Hopkins, who was charged with assaulting young children at the facility. So there were a number of opportunities for this to be fixed before our client entered that facility in 2024 when she suffered the abuse and the horrific circumstances.
Now, let me ask you, regarding those numbers, were you able to separate what you call them unusual reports? And were you able to separate which ones may have been for routine incidents and which were related to misconduct from the employees?
An unusual incident is an unexpected happening or reportable that the facility has to report to the state because of concern that if it's not addressed or fixed, there will be danger to the children. While we haven't been able to obtain the details of all 3,000 of those, I think the sheer magnitude of the number shows that there were problems there that needed to be fixed.
Yeah, I would just add to what Margaret said, and it's always good to work with incredible lawyers like Margaret and Steve Levin, who are so thorough, because I think when you really focus in on the state's failure, you just have to hear the stories of our clients. At the age of 17, Yadira was isolated in a small basement following a dispute with another resident. That was not a standard placement room. Prior to her placement in that room, the Aunt Martha's staff removed cameras from that room despite her classification as a high-needs resident requiring enhanced supervision. On Yadira's first night in that room, Henry Trulon entered her room with his pants down, climbed on top of this child, restrained her, and sexually assaulted her. That abuse, escalating patterns of grooming, coercion, and sexual exploitation continued from January 2024 to April 2024, primarily during Henry's overnight shifts.
Does all of this suggest people problems at DCFS or supervision facilities like that?
Yes, and that's why we brought DCFS into this, and we're going to get to the bottom of what happened here. And Yadira's goal here is to make sure that it doesn't happen to any other child who's in the system because of trauma, who goes to the system for help, and who's supposed to be protected.
If I may ask about the lawsuit filed a few weeks ago, since Aunt Martha and Martha's closed a few years ago, when you named Aunt Martha's in the lawsuit, who are we actually suing here?
Well, Aunt Martha's is bigger than just the ICC that they operated on the south side of Chicago. So they are a corporation that has multiple different facilities like this, and they still exist, even though that particular facility was shut down.
Are there any other questions?
You guys want to wrap it up or any final thoughts?
I know that this is not the only child that we're talking to. And so we encourage any family members of loved ones who were housed at Aunt Martha's and had to live through the house of horrors that you don't have to be silent until you can share your stories in a safe place. The pain doesn't get any easier. Hopefully, with you coming forward, following Yadira's courage, that it'll be easier if she's not standing alone, that you all are standing together with the support of community, saying to these powerful institutions that we're here to help. We're here to make sure that there's accountability, and we're here to make sure that there's justice.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
everyone.